I learned that going through the therapist, because it made me realize what I was lacking in myself. The therapist is asking the right questions at the right time to generate the answers that you seek.
Hi, and welcome to DADennial. My name is Mike Trank, and as you can figure, I'm a dad. I feel that's how a lot of other podcasts start, and those dads will tell you what their day's like. They'll probably talk about what it's like being a dad today too. But along with being a dad by day, I'm also a mental health counselor by night in my own private practice. As a clinician in private practice, and one of those dads sitting in pickup and drop-off lines for school, I wanted to share what I see in this ever-changing world. So together, let's create the best version of being a millennial dad. Today in episode 3, we'll be continuing my conversation with someone I look up to as a dad and I've known as a long time as a friend, Caesar Fernandez. This one will be more talking about his experiences in therapy. But before you listen to that, I thought I'd give you what I've been working on. I've been keeping track of my Let It Out Nows, my lines, and I'm going to start posting them more and more. This one I started posting on the Facebook page for DADennial, and you'll see a picture there too of a musician named Andrew McMahon. And I was floored this week in a positive way by my now 6-year-old son. And this is going to divulge a little information about me, which is good. I think this is a positive of I am an adult, and misconceptions or misconstrued thoughts, positive or negative, about adult ADD. Have them as you may. That's one of the things that I have as a major barrier being a stay-at-home dad. Sometimes the thoughts, sometimes staying focused, sometimes just the day-to-day, just the hour-to-hour, just the second-by-second can be extremely difficult. And one tool that I've used my whole life and that I've really connected to is music. Music has always been calming, always been soothing, always been if I'm feeling excited in my head and I can't calm down. And I've really had to use it again in my life when I stayed at home with my first kid and both kids still. And when he was really young and I was struggling as being a stay-at-home dad of figuring out what that was and what that meant and how I still feel like I continued as a male in the world, right? Of still getting that question that you'll hear in this conversation between me and Caesar in one of the episodes of, oh, it's nice that you babysit, or it's nice that you're taking care of the kids. First question of, so what do you do? And if you say stay-at-home dad, it's a different look than if you say, I'm director of sales or sous chef at the Chipotle, whatever the case is, whatever your hot to trot lifestyle is. So I fast forward now to one of the albums that when my oldest son was about 1 to 2 years old, especially at lunch, because I feel like it'd be more chaotic time, and I'm still trying to be a counselor at an agency, and my wife had started a new job, and I just felt a lot of stress and a lot of pressure at this time. And I was listening to a lot of music myself, and I got my son into it too, because it helped both of us. He would make him smile, make him happy as a child in a high chair, feeding him squished peas and, smushy carrots, and trying to be in the moment. Music helps me be in the moment too, slow things down in my mind. And Andrew McMahon and the Satellites in the Wilderness, the Satellites. So I posted out there, and I ended up seeing one of his shows where he opened up for Weezer. This was about 5-6 years ago with my brother. And so this week, my son, who still listens to these songs, he loves them, and it kind of conjures up memories for him now, which is great to see, was asked me if we could go to a concert. And I love concerts, and I can't wait to take him to many concerts and to explore all the concerts are and all the feelings and it's a very special, unique thing, I find. And I know a lot of other people feel that way too. And I looked online for Andrew McMahon, and unfortunately, he's not coming to the Raleigh area. The closest is like 3 hours away. And unfortunately, I had to tell him that if we'll keep looking, we're going to find a show. Hopefully, it's He does a great performance. So hopefully when he's in the Raleigh area that we'll get a chance to go to the show and maybe try to do one of the VIPs so we can see him and meet him and kind of meet someone that brings up positive feelings and emotions for him and positive lunchtimes as a baby, now as a young child, young boy. And I think that's great. I think that's a special DADennial moment I wanted to share, and a line that it's a positive one and also shares a little bit about my insights of one of my coping skills, one of the things that I've found that really works for me. And that's an important thing to keep in the back of your mind. If you are struggling I'm sure a lot of us have heard the words coping skills. What does it mean? What do I do? These just don't work. My therapist, my mom, my dad, my spouse, my partner has told me about them or tried to give me some, but they just don't work for me. And I would just say, don't give up. There's thousands of them. Keep trying and find the one. You're not going to find 50. I have a handful that are my go-tos, and music is one of them. And Andrew McMahon albums has been a big one of them for the last few years, especially having kids, is something that's just great music. So thank you very much. And I wanted to recap that last time Caesar and I talked about his experience as a millennial dad, and we dug in a little bit on things about the stress of family life, and dad groups, and how Caesar is doing things differently than his dad. And that's kind of the premise of the whole DADennial aspect of this. We're going to talk more about his life as a dad today, but also I'm looking forward to talking with Caesar about his experience with therapy. So let's get back into it. Let's listen to episode 3. And at the end, please feel free to go to DADennial.com. Leave your feedback, comments. Go to the Facebook page. See the lines that I'm posting up there. See the post I put about Andrew McMahon and the photo that I put up there. And I hope you enjoy.
So what I have done, and this brings me entertainment as a dad, I will generate random conversations with people. And I do it because, especially when I'm in the tournaments and there's just a bunch of parents there and we're waiting for our kids to finish, I'll strike up a conversation with anybody. And it's out of loneliness, really, to try to fill the gap or the thrill of meeting somebody new. And I miss that a little bit. Yeah. Just meeting a new face or seeing a new face or making a new friend, because you don't get that a lot as an adult. And of course, post-COVID, you're not going to the office anymore to have work friends.
So I work by myself, so yeah, it's just me and myself and I. It is.
So I go out of my way, and I start. A couple weeks ago, I met a guy from Sweden, and we had a great conversation. He's a chess player. Also, he was a master when he was a young kid. But he's one of the coaches for my son, and I had met him for the first time. His son's in 8th grade, and he's traveled the country for work. Just traveling from Singapore to Germany, then Sweden, been in London, New York City, and now he's in Charlotte. And one of the things he was telling me, we were talking about, I mentioned before about us living in the suburban homes, suburban lifestyles, how siloed we are in a way. And one of the things that he told me, and I agreed with him, was what we missed the most about kind of living in a city or interacting more with people is just the opportunity to meet somebody, an opportunity to make a friend or say hello.
Yeah.
Where I don't know if the next generation is going to have that as easily as we have it because of the phones. I think it's a little different to when you have to meet face to face or even asking a young lady out on a date. If you walk
it's
up
very
and get
different.
A number, you had to have that moment. There's a moment of courage that it takes to go jump in that cold pool. And
they're definitely not getting that. No, they're definitely not getting that. They're definitely, I use the term a lot too, a new normal, right? What's normal to them is not normal to us. When they see if how did mom and dad meet, and I tell them oh, we met in a bar after a kickball league. What? So how they date. So I try to look at it from that lens of all right, so we were different than our dads. They're going to be different than us,
Yeah.
and COVID has definitely shifted a lot of that. And, there's a lot of.
But that was one of the things, like that thrill of
Right.
meetings. I mean, it wasn't a woman, obviously.
But we're human. Yeah. We're social beings.
Right. And sometimes, especially me, I'm very introverted. It doesn't seem like it throughout this conversation because I'm talking a lot. But especially being somebody so introverted as I am, I had forgotten. Sometimes I forget how essential having that social element of my life is.
So first off, I think you're an introvert extrovert, which is you can be both now.
That's well, yes, I've had to develop the extrovert part.
Yeah,
the introvert part. I don't know when you first met me, and I'm grateful. I think about you and I thank you regularly, like in my head. And I've said this to you as well, obviously, that I thank how outgoing you were when we first met, and how you would come, to my room, knock on the door. Hey, you want to go to dinner? You want to go to play pool or whatever? I was not that person. I was very much stuck in just my own little box, just because that's how I was. I had other issues growing up at the time.
It's funny you say that because that person, especially that 18, 19-year-old kid, boy, he was a dum-dum. But that is always, because I feel like we are a lot alike, and my natural instinct is to not want to talk and just want to be introverted. I like being by myself, first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I've always had to learn, and this is through like being an only child up until 10 years and just kind of getting to that point of life where personally, as a teenager, I felt of like, well, it's the world against me, right?
Yeah.
No one thinks I can get to college. No one thinks I can do any of this. I didn't really care. I was just kind of in a really bad negative cycle at that point. Mm-hmm. So I started just to like, well, F it. What's the worst that happens? Someone else just says no. Someone else just puts a door in my face. Right. That's fine. Yeah. So what's the worst that happens? Like, yeah, whether that's kind of how I went through everything. Like, all right, I'm just going to go do it. If he opens the door and wants to hang out, cool. If not, that's still how, like, even here, moving to the new place, I still have that mentality, a sense of, like, because I know me and my wife, Holly, talk about it. And it's funny, too. I was going to say, it's almost in a way easier for her because I found, like, a 5K locally she'd been running. I'm like, oh, there's a 5K in town last weekend. You should sign up for it. You like doing the races.
Yeah.
And she didn't have anyone this time. She goes with a friend back in the day.
Yeah.
But she went by herself. She ended up like running with someone that had like same speed. Like, oh, they exchanged numbers, and now like, oh, they might go running here and there. Like, why is it so easy? Like, you see, you're worried about being here. I'm the one here, just sitting in an office, staring at a wall, talking to people. Like, this is.
Yeah. No, I mean, and the thing is, like, part of that lesson I learned from you at a young age is I got to get myself out there, mm-hmm. And I had a hard time with that transition from high school to living by myself in college. And I don't know if I would have gotten that. I wouldn't have acclimated as quickly if it wasn't for you. Just reaching out the way that you did, as much as you did.
Well, and that's what I said to you. I think the weird but cool thing about our friendship, in my mind at least, is we haven't spent the most time with each other, mm-hmm. But whenever we do like meet up again, because we would go like a couple of years where we didn't see each other, talk to each other. Not that we never not liked each other like that, just how it used to be before cell phones or before things like that, or one reason or another. Yeah. And it would just kind of like start up again. Like,
we don't miss a beat. We don't miss a beat.
Yeah, we don't miss a beat. And it's always like, I feel like it was the time with you, whether in college or even after it, has been some of the most impactful and moments of my life that like I remember more vividly.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's and just seeing that as you get older too, of like understanding of, all right, here's a pattern in my life of someone that, whether it was college, whether it was Orlando, mm-hmm. Whether it's now, how we have that and how it, I feel like, impacts me. And yeah, I think it's an important resource that sometimes you just kind of maybe forget or maybe just don't pay attention to, but just kind of that recognition and understanding, like yourself. Let's kind of call back here at the beginning here of seeing the pattern, seeing of like, oh, that is pretty cool. That's pretty important. That's a special friendship, special relationship. And I think that, and I think I said to you too, I think the other thing that as a youngster that I never realized and always been impactful for me and always helped me see, at least stop and see, and now I see more, obviously the therapist understand more, is that we grew up in the same area. We knew a lot of the similar, same people.
Yeah.
And it's always that stupid, naive young person assumption of like, our experiences are similar. But when you told me like they're not, because you're a Dominican, I'm just a white guy, like your experience in the Danbury area is very different than mine. And how that kind of shocked me of like, oh, wait a minute. All right. Like I never thought about it or saw it that way until you tried to explain it to me. Of like, and I was like adamant of, no, we know the same people. Like, how could it be different? But no, as I get older, of like understanding of like how that's different.
I don't know if you want to extend this conversation another 30 minutes, but you've just opened up something else. So I've seen a therapist being a dad. I needed one because, like you said, like there's a part of me that is a perfectionist, especially with I'm not a perfectionist in my workplace or anything like that. You know, I do the best I can with what I have, and I put a limitation on myself in the workplace because I don't want to overwork, because my priority is my family, my children, and my wife. Yep. So that's where I'm perfect. And I put that pressure on myself, and I did need to see a therapist for a while. Got the EAP thing through work and all that other noise. And I remember requesting, is there somebody that they asked me on the EAP, is there somebody specific that you want to see? I said, I prefer somebody who's a man and not a white man. I wanted somebody who could relate to me in a way. I wish I would have gone a little further and requested a father also. But they did match me up with a nice black gentleman locally over here, and I saw him for probably 6-7 weeks. And it was very enlightening. But I remember making that request because I felt that his upbringing would be sort of similar to mine in a way that our dads would have had a different upbringing as well that would get passed down to the next generation. So my dad would have a different work experience than your dad. And because of that, your upbringing would be different than mine generationally. You know, there was a certain set of, you had your expectations and I had my expectations, and some expectations were just get out of the neighborhood. Like for us, it was my parents worked hard to get out of the ghettos and out of project housing.
Right.
We shouldn't need to go back into it. You know what I'm saying? My father grew up in Washington Heights, and my mother was in Upper Manhattan, not in nice neighborhoods, 109th and Broadway, when they came from the islands as teenagers, 13, 14 years old, whatever it was. And because of that community, it's just going to be different. Going to ghettos and stuff. I remember going to my great grandfather's house, in Spanish Harlem, and, the roaches scattering all over the place in these small little places. You wouldn't believe that this old person lives in this nasty apartment. You know what I'm saying? Or down the street, or, people selling crack on the corner, daylight, wide open, and it's right there, or gunshots, or, in the background, or going to sleep. And no matter what hour of the day it is, there's gunshots, police sirens, and fire trucks. And I was part of it, and that's how my parents grew up. And my early years were like that, where I heard that in the background. So when I moved to the suburbs in Bethel, I was 5 or 6 or whatever. I was young. But my father still had that chip on his shoulder.
Sure.
That he thought of himself, I think he thought of himself as one of those self-made men from the projects that, like George Jefferson moved up to the east side with his laundry business, his dry cleaning business. And it was that kind of mentality.
Yeah. And you gotta kind of have that mentality to break the cycle, right? That's what it is.
And he would come, he was a corporate guy. He worked at Reader's Digest, the magazine, for 25 years in Pleasantville in New York, but he would come and he would tell me about his friend. One friend was Clarence, another one was Henry, these 2 black guys. And it was these 2 black guys and my dad would have lunch every day. And I met them a few times. So I'd go to work with my dad. But my dad never told me stories about the white guys. He never interacted with them. There was always that chip on his shoulder that, it's
different then too, for sure.
or going, when I first got my driver's license, I remember going through a nice neighborhood and driving, and I came home and asked my dad, "Hey, Dad, this neighborhood was here? It's over in Greenwich. I think I got lost and I ended up in Greenwich or something." And yeah, I was meeting a girl and I got lost on the way back home. And he was like, "Yo, you don't belong there." And I was like, "What do you mean you don't belong there?" He's like, "You don't belong there. You belong, more over here. That those people are over there for a reason. Those are the wealthy white folks that live there. You belong over here with us. I don't want you to get in trouble being in the wrong place at the wrong time." That's the conversation that I had with my father, or the police conversation that a lot of Black fathers have with their sons. I had a very similar conversation. I get by because I can pass for any race. I'm a light-skinned Dominican guy, because, we're all mutts. It's, like colonialism all over the Eastern Seaboard. It's happening.
Yeah.
I have Irish blood and, African, and Native Spanish, and the Native American, indigenous people. It's all mixed together in the islands. But, having that conversation with my dad about, keep your hands on the steering wheel, don't move. You know what I'm saying? You had that conversation. So when I asked for a therapist, I had to, I was very adamant. I want this person to be this person because that's how I think that they would better relate to me.
Right. Rightfully so. I think that's
also.
Yeah.
Not to discredit, a white dude. I'm sure they would have, insight as well.
I think I've learned, or I understand at least, of even the course curriculum, right? It's geared in a general sense. And yeah, you have your cultural courses of like how to do your best to, not step on, when you're in a home or you're working with a family that is from the islands or wherever, of how do you just kind of step back and like let them show you what their cultural norms are so that you can kind of match of what therapy or how can you work with that family or person, without breaking social norms, cultural norms, trying to, but it's a very generalized thing. And I've had, this is personally so I spent a couple of years after I got my master's. You have to take 3,000. You have to complete 3,000 hours postgraduate. So you're pretty much working in an agency, and they give you the worst. So like, here you go. You're just the low end of the totem pole, and go into some of the worst parts of the greater Boston area. Going into the homes, working with these kids, working with these families, kind of just helped me a lot understand too of the gentle touch is how I call it. By that I mean, don't just edit that, please. is just kind of not going in there, which I feel like some therapists can do and do is like, here's what we're doing, here's our 10 stuff, here's our sessions, this is what we're gonna do, and just get me out of here. Of like, all right, you tell me your story, you tell me what's going on, you tell me what, tell me more about your family, where'd you come from, like what's that on the wall, and tell me about that picture, just trying to understand so I can like gently then of like kind of break in that thing of like, I know we probably don't have anything relatable at all, right? Even though it's like some families have, and I've told you, right? Like, I feel like I'm privileged in the sense of knowing that my grandfather was one of those people that came to America with nothing. Yeah. So hearing that story and having him in my life of like, all right, I know what that was like for him, and like how like traumatic it was for him to like start from nothing to get to where he was, and right, how the next generation, like, you can't. When I told him I was 6 years old, I was like, I want to be a bus driver. He almost literally killed me. Like, I did not risk my life with them for you to be a bus driver. Yeah. And that was just his mentality. So I kind of understood of when dads would be like, we're here in America. He is not just going to like waste his time here. Like, I'm like, okay, I can understand that somewhat. Right? At some level, I can have some like understanding of like, okay, but I don't want to impose of like, oh yeah, I have the same story too. Like, no, I don't. I don't have the same story at all. It's my story, and your story is your story. And so trying to like gently find something relatable, find something, that build that trust, a lot of building rapport, a lot of getting that trust, especially with, families and people.
When I stopped seeing him, it was because, the EAP would only do so much.
Yeah, it's only 8 to 10 sessions usually.
Yeah, something like that. But I realized afterwards that I was looking forward to seeing him not because necessarily that he was, doing any work on me, although I'm sure he was. But I realized that what I was missing was I just needed somebody to talk to, and somebody that I can relate to, because I needed that mom group per se. Like you mentioned, like we don't have that, and that's why I'm happy that you're doing this.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I do it for myself. It's my own selfish reasons too. It's two-part of like it helps me maybe grow a business instead of just seeing one person at a time and seeing, because I see a lot of men. I work with a lot of in this world. So it's like, all right, how can I help more? But also, how can I talk to people I want to talk to and kind of make this spread the word kind of thing of like, here you go, like here's something we can start with. Here's that ground of, I don't know how to start a group. I don't know how to start like a local group on Facebook with dads or like, I want to make it bigger. I want to make it something where like, here you can have support group in Charlotte and Raleigh and Boston, New York, wherever, like, and so you can, that's where you can go. Like, I'm a new dad. All right, I can go to DADennial. I'll find my local support group, or don't even call it a support group. I feel like it just has a bad name. Like, here, just a group of guys of like, here, we're going to the park on Thursday at 10. If you're around, like we go around, or like we're going on Saturday to, wherever. Just having that. It's not just guys sitting around. Oh yeah, I think it has that stigma too of, because I feel like the one thing I hear is, and maybe you've seen this too, more and more people like, guys need to go to therapy, and I'll get it. Like, well, I'm told to go to therapy. Now what?
Right.
Like, well, what do you want to talk about? I don't know. I'm a guy. I'm supposed to go to therapy. That's what I always hear. Like, I got an issue. I'm supposed to go to therapy. Yeah. Like, well, all right. Let's start from the beginning then, because it's that thing of like, I feel like there's just so many like broken pieces of the whole system right now. Of like, all right, guys are like more understanding of maybe there's something wrong. I'm told I'm supposed to go to therapy. I'm told I'm supposed to like talk about things that happened to me, why I am the way I am. Yeah. But you don't know how, which I think leads to like my final kind of question kind of thing that I throw out there at the end there, which is to destigmatize it. I think for a lot of guys is when you hear therapy, you think of many different things. Not a lot of them are positive. And even that thought of, where do I start? Where do I, what do I say? What do I do? Oh, I will say this before we go to that. I was going to say earlier of when you just go randomly talk to people. Mm-hmm. It's a fun game, and we could probably do this too. So with my psychology background, I like to like dissect them and figure out if I can know like their personality type, and then figure out some questions and then go to them and ask them. Oh, that's a fun game. See if I'm right or wrong.
That's interesting.
I'm about like 85-90%. Pretty good still.
I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. I think you know what I mean, and not to discredit you, but I think a lot of people are like that. There's something
I do professionally though.
Yes, so I'm sure you
put the pin right there.
But I think there's something innate, and how it is how people gravitate to like-kind or like-minded people, and I think there's something that attracts us to certain others that are similar.
Yeah, he will pick up on traits. So I'll pick up on certain things of like, oh, that person's wearing this, or that person's, I can hear him talking about that. Of like, I know about that, or like, I know about that team.
Yeah,
just finding something, some common ground.
So one thing I don't do, I don't talk sports. I think that's the least common denominator when I do that kind of thing. I don't talk sports, and I don't talk over beers. Like people say, you want to get a beer or whatever. So I'll go to the bar, but I will be very specific in what I order. Like I'll order a cocktail at a bar instead of drinking a beer.
See, I feel shame. Like you've called out about 80% of my game right now. First of all, second of all, it's this thing of like I need to drink an IPA, and I hate IPAs. I love fruity beers. I like vodka and pineapple. I have a sweet tooth at 44. Like I don't know. Like I am like a sugary Goonies diabetic, just waiting to explode. But if I'm just with like that is the thing of like, all right, you want to go grab a beer or something? I don't know. Like, let's go to the.
What it is sports is the lowest common denominator.
But it brings people together.
It's nationality, and then sports. I'm in the USA. There's that. That's very common ground, and then there's the sports team. So that's why I don't do that, because like I said, it's my meeting new people. It's intentional. I'm doing it to fill a void that I have, and I'm not doing it. I'm not being manipulative about it.
No,
it's just I just need to fill it. Yeah.
It's genuine, raw, and real. What you're saying now is just very genuine and raw. It's very much understanding yourself, and that awareness level is extremely high. That you know what you're craving, you know what you want. It's the frustrating part is of like, how do I fill it? Right? How do I fill that void? And that could be the most difficult part when you're like, I can manage all these other things, but I can't manage the one thing that I want.
Right.
The one thing that I actually want and I actually would like enjoy, I can't figure out. As smart as I am, as much as I can like cook every night and do everything else fantastic, I can't figure out how does this work? Right? Is there a entrepreneur book of how to create a business plan for dads?
But I learned that going through the therapist, because I learned it made me realize what I was lacking in myself. Just talking stuff out. Like he wasn't prompting me, or like that's not true. He would prompt the question because, of course, he's trained to do that. He knows how to initiate the conversation. But the therapist is asking the right questions at the right time to generate the answers that you seek.
The therapist is always like therapist is always 2 or 3 questions ahead, or most of the time.
Right, and you can tell that.
Right, like they don't know the answer. They already know what you need. They already know what the problem is. It's trying to guide you of, all right, let's find how you can figure it out. So then you feel like, aha, I figure it out. Like, good.
So I learned that that's what I was missing, was connections with others, having people to relate with. And I don't talk about nationality. I don't talk over beers, and I do a cocktail, because the cocktail is a slower process. You can sip a cocktail and have a longer conversation, as opposed to people downing beers. Like people, like the familiarity of just downing, bottles or cans. People drink that stuff like soda. Eventually,
what bars you go? You can go to a brewery and get a nice like 7% beer at your sip. You're not pounding a double IPA anytime soon. Trust me.
These are dads in the suburbs. They want a Bud Light and they want like 10 of them.
You're in the wrong suburbs. Come to my suburbs. We're sipping on like stout beers that like take like forever, and you're getting like a nice wood-fired pizza and enjoying the afternoon.
That sounds very romantic, but I guess I don't.
Sorry, I romanticize it.
It sounds very romantic. I don't see that, and a lot of the dads I see out there, it's escaping, like they're escaping the moment.
Escapism is huge, because that's
and that's why I don't do beers, because I think that's what's happening, and I don't want to be part of that. I've tried really hard again since I met with that therapist. I learned a lot about myself and about trying to maintain my presence.
I want to make a group and start like a hashtag cocktails with C's.
Yeah, there you go.
So we can get like every Friday you can have like a nice cocktail somewhere.
Yeah,
you can meet up with people.
I prefer that, because like I said, I like to stay present. I'm sorry, I like to stay present, and I learned that through the therapist. So I learned how to I meditate every morning. I do 10 to 15 minutes of meditation practice that usually comes back at least once or twice throughout the day, where I have to practice that. Stay in the present moment. Don't let your mind take you down a fantasy that's not there yet, either through anxiety or reliving the past. You know what I'm saying? It's one of the two. So that meditation practice that I learned from going through therapy and learning about myself helps out a lot, being the dad that I am.
Yeah. It's all about managing.
Trying to push back that resentment that I may have that may sneak up, and I can be like, nah, that's my old version thinking of that, or that's my memories that may not be exactly what it is.
Just to kind of harken back to, you don't have the struggles that your dad had of trying to get there is different than where you are of, you're there, and it's a different world too on top of it. So yeah, everything's completely different. What is your I have to ask, what's the favorite cocktail, Caesar?
So I keep it simple, man. I do about 3 fingers of Grand Marnier. I have a nice ice block. 3 fingers of Grand Marnier, and I splash a little maraschino liqueur in there. That lasts me a good 35 minutes. That's it, man. If I'm doing something nice, there's a cocktail that I make for my wife and I call the Gold Rush, which is it's just whiskey, honey syrup, and lemon juice. It's a
you give me anything with honey and syrup?
Yeah, it's a honey syrup. So it's 3 parts honey, 1 part water, put in the microwave, stir it, put a little whiskey in there, or bourbon, whatever kind of whiskey bourbon you like, and some lemon juice. Dry shake for like 10 seconds and pour it over a block of ice, and you're good.
You should get like the honey whiskey. Injected. Oh, that makes it a little bit better. A little extra sweetness to it. Trust me.
I may try that.
Yeah.
They know me up in the liquor store.
Oh yeah, the ABC. You're the D.
No, I don't go to ABC, man.
Oh, you go to South Carolina. Yeah. What's a question that you want to, like, do you think someone would ever want to ask a therapist, or you would ever want to ask a therapist, or what helps destigmatize therapy?
That's a tough question. I think this, for men to go see a therapist, I think it's seen as a sign of weakness, of mental weakness, physical weakness, because it can manifest physically. And to put that pride aside for your own betterment can be tough to recognize. So my question is, you know that when you see a man coming in to see you, how do you address that early on? Like, is that something that comes out right away? Because I'm sure this is most men that you see have that stigma already, or have that, they've already come in with their head hanging down. I'm a weak person because I'm seeing a therapist. You know, how do you address that early on, or does that conversation come up first, or one of the first things that gets addressed when you're in a session with somebody?
I like it. When I see someone, it's similar to what you were saying, of like they're looking for a male, they're looking for someone relatable, someone that's kind of maybe going through what they're going through, or have some idea what they're going through. I feel like the first thing that pops in my mind, for better or worse, is that I get if like I've tried different therapists and just none of them work. It's like almost like a last resort by the time they come to me. It's almost like I'm supposed to go to therapy. I try to work on anxiety, depression, blah blah blah, and like I hear like do this or that, try like walking, and like no one just really gets it. I just like I don't know. Like I'm trying it one more time, and maybe a guy can help. I don't know. Like because there's few males, so it's usually and not plenty of great female therapists, but just maybe that relatability to it you're saying for some it's that you can kind of see it. You kind of see that defeated mindset of like, I don't know how to fix this. I'm just so anxious. I'm just so depressed. I'm just so stressed, and just trying to be in the moment. I think it's that crossroads that both of us have come across. I think that dads have come across of, all right, we grow up, we kind of start our path with a career, and then we add a relationship to it, and then we start mixing in kids, and then now it's just haywire. Like, wait a minute, where's the book? What do we do?
I wasn't prepared for this.
Yeah, I'm not prepared. Of like my career is going to crap. My kids hate me. Yeah. My wife and I we barely look at each other, and just no sparks fly, just more daggers. Yeah. So it's like, how do I balance this anymore? Like I used to be able to balance it. It's always out of like, when I ask them, I do that like kind of 1 to 10 of, all right, where are you? And they'll give me whatever number, and I always kind of say like, well, what does a 1 look like? What is a really good day, or what does that feel like? And it always goes back to like, well, I was 23. Like you can go back to it right away. I'm like, all right. So what I'm hearing is a lot more has been added on. So it's just more of that pressure, more of that, well, now I have to be a great dad. I can't be like my dad. I got to be great in my job because, right, there's competition for everything. You got to be the best at what you do. You got to try to be good at your job. You have to be there for your partner, right? You have to be more in tune, emotional, understanding. You can't just be your Al Bundy, or just sit on the couch or just sit in a chair and watch News Hour. It's if I did that, I'm sure I'd be served papers within a week. So it's the expectations are totally different. And I think that just really throws off a lot of people. I can remember when I used to be able to handle it all, because it's that balance of like, I used to be able to handle it all. I still know the old way because I can just hold it all in, but now I can't hold it all in anymore. Now it's just overflowing, and I'm just anxious and just a nut. I can't take it anymore. And I think it's that crossroads, that kind of path, even for myself of starting my practice and having a kid and being in a relationship and trying to do it all at once of like, but what about me? Wait, when's that monthly massage again? And it's just even today, like, all right, I know I needed like 5 minutes, just kind of count to 5, take some deep breaths, just kind of reset. I like to write a little bit, make sure I got here a couple minutes early after I had my fiasco at Chick-fil-A. And
that's another. Oh, I wanted to mention this. And you made a good point. So I started journaling during COVID. I remember the day, October 27th, 2020. I had my first journal entry. I'd never done it before, but I for some reason I felt like I needed something.
It's a way to let it out. It's psychologically a way that you're physically letting it out.
Yeah. So I needed to have something because I couldn't talk a lot. I'm not a talker, but I committed. I journal. I did it every day for six months, every single day, and I filled a full college ruled page, sometimes both sides, and I made it a point. I'm going to fill the page at very minimum, fill at least one page, just so I would let it all out. You know what I'm saying? I would give whatever I had at the moment, and if I only do a sentence or a paragraph, maybe I'm not digging deep enough. So I'd make it a point. I'm going to fill the whole page for, these first couple months, every single day. And I'm reading like self-help books and all this other stuff because I was, for so long, I was embarrassed to go see a therapist. You know what I'm saying? So I tried anything to fix myself first. Finally, I saw a therapist, but, that writing and that always trying to make myself or improve who I am, that doesn't stop. I'm still trying to do that.
Nor should it. But hopefully I'm not jumping ahead here, but hopefully it's a balance of, it doesn't have to be a full page, right? It can be just one sentence or even one word.
Now it can be. Now it can be. And I think the first part, I think I just had to train myself to just sit down and do it. That was number one. Number two was to train myself to get what I was feeling, get used to documenting what I was feeling at the moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes that length of time to go for the full page was really trying to identify how I was feeling at that time. Because it wasn't something I was used to. It was not something that I could readily do where a sentence was enough.
It's funny that this kind of like answers part of the question too. It's like when I suggest or I say and I just joked about even during the podcast here of self-care, right? Just like I say, like I know therapists sometimes we have that stigma of like we're just sitting on top of a mountain doing yoga for 60 minutes in the morning having like nice herbal tea.
Right.
Like, but in real life, if you can find 5 minutes, and then it kind of goes to self-care. What do you mean, like going to the spa, like getting like my feet done? Like, no, can be. That's perfectly okay. But also just that understanding of all you need is a couple minutes. All like hearing that word self-care of taking that just 2 minutes, and I literally say to people of honestly, just go hide in the bathroom. No one will say nothing. Just put on the fan and just sit there for 5 minutes and just sit there like just digesting like everything that's happened today. Because, just having that self-check-in of, right, your silly little lion, like, or what your number is like, man, I really feel like, all right, I'm at an 8. How do I get down to a 6? Because I don't like feeling like an 8. And just that 5 minutes of self-care of, all right, where am I? Like, I'm just, the understanding is kind of blows more people away of, oh, that's it. Like that can help you. Like it can. If you train yourself, you do it. It becomes a habit and a routine of, it can make a world of difference because when you're more aware and more understanding of what's going on with you and where your head's at of why am I not present, or just an understanding, it creates a world of difference of who you are and how you present to everyone around you. That's that's where it needs to start.
So did you answer my question when I asked how do you deal with the machismo coming in and the machismo not trying to deflate that, I guess.
So I wonder too if, being honest here, if like, see, when I hear machismo and I feel like it's like a cultural thing, right? I feel like I came across more with that when I was doing in-home therapy with some dads. Maybe that's where, from your side of like seeing the cultural side of, it is more machismo. It is like pride. And I think where I see more is more lost, deflating at times of like, it's not even about pride or machismo. Sometimes it is, of course. It's usually pretty thin. It's usually like, I just do that because that's just, comes across, right? Like you just can clearly just get past that and it goes right to softy.
Yeah.
And so it's just a lot of, just of that deflating of just kind of listening more, right? I think too of like wanting to be heard.
Yeah, that's huge.
I think a lot of guys, when I say like this is a safe space, this is a place where you can say whatever's on your mind. Mm-hmm. And so I say like, I think I've been talking for 30 minutes. That's okay. That's what's on your mind, right?
Yeah.
For myself too, as a therapist, I'm having to learn if that's therapy too. If it doesn't have to be of, all right, what did we do for cognitive behavioral therapy this week? Did we complete the mantra worksheet? Did we do this? And not getting lost of, sometimes with EAPs, things like that, right? We have to try to condense things in a certain number of sessions, and that could be difficult. But that's why I think it's been a positive experience for a lot of people. I think it's helped propel me to doing what I'm doing now. All right, maybe in some weird world that maybe I'm onto something here, and maybe I can spin this into helping more people and putting it out there and seeing if I can make this grow into something to actually help people, right? Actually kind of be something bigger than just a word and just a small little podcast, and see where this can go. And I think just the honest conversation we've had tonight is proof enough that, there's a big need. And anytime I brought up the ideas to either therapists or producers of similar to your reaction, it's like, oh, that's a really good idea. Like, no one really has that. Like, there really is no place or no thought or idea of like how to make this into something to actually create that next step of, all right, we know what a guy should be and act like, and kind of what that template is, and trying to create that and trying to create those new social norms, right? To kind of break that cycle of your bud drinking people at the outhouse there.
Yeah, the escapism.
The escapism is huge, right? And we all do that, men, women. Yeah. But I think just trying to understand that, just trying to have a place where you can be heard, or you can talk, or just find so that you feel like you're not the only one making dinner, you're not the only one dealing with a kid that lost his marbles at his first golf class today that we almost went home. I literally was in the minivan. I'm like, all right, you have a choice, buddy. Either we're going home, or we're never coming back, or we can get it together. We can take a few deep breaths, which I'm like, in myself, like, I'm taking deep breaths now. We're both taking deep breaths and then when I talked to Holly about it later, it was just like that thing of like, not that I didn't want to hear it, just of like, okay. And that is when my son is just kind of having his little nutty there, as I call it, and just sensory overload. But you get all the stares because you're the dad. Yeah. And like, especially in a place like golf, like, are you like a Tiger Woods golf dad? Like I'm like dragging my kid who's screaming, but I just want to get him out of the way because no other kid's screaming, and he's just having a hard time acclimating to like what he needed to do and was still in a state. Yeah. And right, I'm not trying to harm him, I'm not trying to yell at him, I'm just trying to get him out of the way. But you're getting all the stares. It's always that I feel like that pressure of like, you're a horrible dad. Like, what did you do? Like, why is he upset? And Holly's like, I don't ever see that. I don't get that. I'm like, because moms don't get that, because moms didn't get the support and the help. Usually if they see like a kid crying upset, they don't assume it's like that she did it, that the mom did it, or whoever the mom is did it, or is part of the problem. They assume that with the dad. And that always brings me back to that when that happens again. I'm like, oh, I hate this feeling. I get it's the most anxiety-ridden feeling, because I'm like, I'm not a bad dad. Like, put a big sticker on me. I'm not a bad dad. I'm just trying to get him out of the way, just trying to like have him like reset. I'm a therapist. I have a business card. I know what I'm doing. Yep. He's not screaming because of what I'm doing. I'm trying to help him out. And he was able to. Like he's able to kind of get back into it and finished the class and had a great time. But
that's what matters.
Yeah, but it's like, and I was telling him in the car, and this is where it's like that parenting friendship where I have real conversation with my 6-year-old of, I'm glad you had a great time. I'm glad that you want to keep, because one thing I have is like special memories in a shoebox. So things that he finds as special memories in his mind, you put in a shoebox. So he has like, when we travel, like that we moved, of like, you put your most important stuff in that shoebox. You decorate it, you do whatever you want. That's your shoebox of like memories and things that are important to you. So he knows what that feeling is even at 6.
Yeah.
So this piece of paper with his name on it that he wouldn't put on because he didn't want to stick it on anywhere. He wanted to put it on his shoe. I'm like, buddy, you got to put the stupid sticker that says your name on it on your shirt. But no, he wanted to put it like on his zipper, so it kept falling off in his sweatshirt. I'm like, buddy. So, of course, at the end, he's like, I want to put this on my shoebox. Like, of course you do.
Yeah.
Of course. We wrestled with it for 45 minutes. Now you want to put it in your shoebox. So I try to explain to him I'm glad that you feel better, but you have to understand, too, when you do that to mom or dad, or try to understand how dad felt of, like, dad tries to help you, but people don't maybe understand that. So you need to see that, too. You need to, like, listen to me when I'm saying, take a deep breath, or let's walk out, let's hold my hand, let's walk away, let's try to take a second. You're getting to the age now where you need to understand more of, how that looks, how that feels for me, too, and I don't feel good now. And I need some time, too, like how I tell you, Nolan, of not just take deep breaths, but we could do Star Wars yoga, things like that. Like, I need my time now. I recognize that of you've put me in a place where I'm overly anxious and
Yep.
feeling guilty and feeling all these different feelings.
What's crazy is that, that looking when you have other people looking at you when your son is screaming.
It's the worst.
It is the worst.
Everyone thinks like you hit him.
Yeah, it's awful. And it kind of sucks that there's almost a need of validation from the outside world looking at you. Like, okay, he's doing the right thing.
Right, so when everyone knows I'm DADennial and I have my shirt on all the time, I'm like, oh, it's just DADennial. We're okay. He's not hitting his kid.
That's why you have to get the T-shirt so they know.
I did. I bought it. It did not come out right. It just the Ennial starts like right in between like the second and third roll.
Yeah.
It's a hot mess.
Get the T-shirt. Get the T-shirt so that when your kid is screaming at the golf, people know that you're DADennial and it's all good. You're doing the right things. Yeah,
but I need to try
I'll tell you, we had a few episodes, both with my son, I believe. Jennifer had one with my son. I know I had one with my son where he wanted a cookie at the grocery store. And I said, no, you've already had enough cookies. This dude throws a fit at the grocery store. I pick him up by the jacket and I walk around. I'm just getting a couple things at the grocery store. I walk around with him kind of one-handed, in a fist, just grabbing him by the jacket. And I'm paying, I'm at the self-checkout, here with my card and walk out. And as soon as I'm walking out, this old lady comes up to me and says, "Good job, Dad." Which I thought was really nice. Like, this lady to come to me as a stranger, saw my kid from the jump, begged me for a cookie. I said no, and I stuck to it. Yeah. A lot of parents, when the kid flips out, they'll be like, all right, stop flipping out. You're causing a scene. I don't want people to look at me. Here's a cookie.
Yeah, that's the friend part too there, yeah.
So, and I'm here with my kid, like, nah, dude, you're not getting that cookie. Mm-hmm. And he's screaming, and I'm paying, self-checkout with one hand, my kid's on the other hand, Mm-hmm. That's one scenario. Another old lady went up to my wife at Target, and my son wanted to go around without holding my wife's hand. She gave him an option. You can either get in the shopping cart, the little seat in the front, or you can hold my hand. Mm-hmm. He wasn't having either. And he threw a fit, lost his shit right there at Target. And my wife was like, hell no. Now she picked his ass up, put him in the cart, and that was it. 2 parents went up to her and said, "Good job, Mom. That's how you do it." Older ladies. Right. Every time that's happened, the twice the one time for me and one time for my wife that I know of, it was 2 older, and I'm talking like, grandmothers, like in their 70s, came up to us and said that. And that validation, like that told me, you know what? Instead of them looking at me like I just spanked the shit out of them or something, and they're causing a tantrum or whatever, having a tantrum. Right. That validation really gave me confidence. I know I'm doing the right things.
Yeah.
And I think people see that. If they have that type of validation, that confidence, it makes a huge difference. Because sometimes you can feel like a bad dad, even though you're not.
Yeah.
But the outside world is making you feel like one.
And I'm also aware too that part of it is my own in my own head of just that feeling. Right? It is a feeling. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they were. I don't know. But it's part of me learning too of destigmatizing it, trying to feel like this is normal and people aren't looking at me in a bad way, looking at me maybe in a normal way, hopefully. So just try to see it from that way too of sometimes recognizing your own stuff too of maybe it's not that, maybe it is me. That's part of that growing up too of
No doubt.
understanding and learning. So, yeah, it's been one hell of a day. But I want to thank you again for being on the show, and appreciate taking all this time. And maybe we got a 3-parter out of this, but I think it was quite important and quite just pivotal and interesting of validation too, right? Of this podcast and what we're doing here. And we're going to start like a online thing there of having cocktails with Caesar every Friday night.
Cocktails.
You'll never not have a friend at a bar again having a slow cocktail. Right. That's right.
That's cool.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to this 2-part episode of DADennial. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed getting a chance to speak with someone that I've looked up to as a dad and as a friend for a long time. I just wanted to let this conversation go and flow. And sometimes that's important. I've learned more as a therapist than a dad and a father and a friend. And I'm letting that now carry over I just wanted to see where this went. And I think it was very special to me, and he's told me it's very special to him that we had this conversation of kind of saying things that maybe been on our mind for many years, or things we've thought about, but we've seen each other so little throughout the years because we lived in different places and lived lives of, he has older kids now and I have younger kids, so it was great to just kind of sit down and do that. And I encourage anyone with a friend that maybe they've lost touch with, or a family member, that why not just reach out? Why not just say, hey, I'd like to just have a chat. Let's just, get online even, meet somewhere, whatever the case is, if it's a short distance or long distance. I think it's a very important piece of finding mental health in community, in your support. And that's a big piece that I think is overlooked when we talk about mental health. And I'll be talking more about mental health and what I keep hearing this word of the mental health problem that we have. And I'm going to dig more into that in upcoming episodes. So feel free, as I said, to go to DADennial.com, go to Facebook.com, and next episode will be up soon. Thank you.